Hi, it's Doug here, board gamer from Australia, Knizia nerd, board game nerd, Tolkien nerd. As you can see, there's probably 75% of these games on my game shelf are Knizia games, and today we're going to talk about a new Knizia game that just arrived last week, kind of out of the blue. I had pre-ordered it, but I was expecting it. But yeah, I wasn't expecting it to arrive so soon, but here it is. It's The Hobbit, There and Back Again, published by Office Dog. Designed by Reiner Knizia, 1 to 4 players. I guess you can call this a roll and write game. And we're going to take a look from the perspective of a board game nerd, a Knizia nerd, a Tolkien nerd. When nerds collide, let's take a look. Just so you know who you're dealing with here, I probably read The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit when I was 10 or 11 for the first time. These are my reading copies. I've probably read The Hobbit perhaps 5 times over the last 50 years. I've read Lord of the Rings 35 times. And if you don't believe me, this is my reading copy, and it's a 1979 unwin edition, and it is literally falling to pieces. So I've got Tolkien books, I've got hard copy books, I've got BBC radio adaptations, and I have some Reiner Knizia Tolkien themed board games. This is absolutely superb, probably one of the best 2-player games ever designed. But yeah, I've got a few Reiner Knizia games here themed on Tolkien, and I've got all my Tolkien bona fides in place. So I feel like I know what I'm talking about here, so let's take a look at this new game. So here it is, The Hobbit, There and Back Again. It's large, it's substantial, it's heavy. I wasn't expecting a Knizia roll and write game to be basically produced like this. It's quite a large box. When I think Knizia roll and write games, I'm thinking of games like perhaps Crisscross, the Pick-a-Pen trilogy of games, or maybe a small compact game like Lost Cities roll and write. So yeah, this basically dwarves all of these games. Yeah, it's a big box. Let's take a look inside. So when you open the box, this is what you're confronted with. I can't say there's a lot of components in here, but what is here is large and substantial. You get these sword, pine cone, and bread tokens. You get 5 white dice. These are all different. 2 of these dice are the same, but the other 3 are quite different. You get a black D12. You get these 4 very thick, chunky scenario books, and you get 4 markers. My copy also had this, I assume it's a promo. It's basically a metal die, metal D12, which replaces the D12 that comes with the game. And also it's got basically, I don't know, dwarf runes or something for die faces with a little decoder here. This dice is about 40 grams in weight. It's a weapon. You probably don't want to throw this because you'll probably smash a glass or something. So yeah, nice to have, but I can't see myself using this. The rules are large and lavish and quite simple to read. Basically, it's a Knizia game, so basically the rules are 2 to 3 pages long, maybe 5 pages long. But it looks quite, I don't know, quite wordy, but this is a very, very simple game to play. All the complexity is actually in the scenarios. So just one thing I will touch on, and I'm going to touch on it more, is initially when I picked this up, I looked at the cover and I thought, oh, this looks a little cartoony to me. I'm not sure I'm buying the artwork here. I'm sort of reared on the John Howe School of Tolkien art, just as I reach over for my John Howe book. Yeah, so my vision of Tolkien and board games and basically Middle-earth in general is all very much driven by John Howe. But the more I looked at this art, once you get past the cover and you actually dig into the game, this is very much a Tolkien inspired artwork. Like, look at the dragon on the cover of the scenario book, and basically, you know, these are the dragons that you'll actually, you know, this is Tolkien's original art from the Hobbit. So yeah, the art charmed me eventually. It took me about 20 minutes, but then yeah, I bought into the artwork and the presentation of this game. It is actually really, really good, and I'll touch more on the little thematic touches as I talk through the game a little more. Now, I should point out, I haven't played this game multiplayer. I've played this game about 20 times, and they have all been solo. So this little walkthrough will purely be from the solo game point of view. A quick summary of what I think of the solo game is, it's okay. It's essentially turn-based, and you're basically just racing for points and to try and beat your previous score. But what I have seen from the solo game is it's a bit of a mixed bag. It kind of leaves you wanting more, and it really, really, really makes me want to play the multiplayer game, because I think that's what this game is. It's a multiplayer game with a solo add-on, which almost seems like an afterthought. That may be a little disingenuous, but yeah. So yeah, let's have a look at this scenario book. You're going to get 8 parts here in this scenario book. This is a very substantial book, and it's basically laminated. You will use these dry erase markers to basically fill in boxes as you work your way through the solo scenarios. And each scenario is basically a chapter from the book. If you're coming to The Hobbit from the movies and you've never read the book, a lot of this may pass you by. This is a very affectionate sort of homage to the novel, the charming children's book. And if you know the novel well, I sort of know it okay. I probably haven't read it in 15 years. You're going to get a lot out of this. And yeah, look, just as a quick example, part 2, roast mutton. Basically, you're moving your way through this board, past the trolls, and then you get to these white stones. And the rulebook talks about white stones. I've read The Hobbit. I don't remember white stones, but when I went and checked the text, sure enough, as you're working your way into Rivendell, after you've encountered the trolls, the path was marked by white stones. It's actually there in the book. And you'll find, the more and more you look at this, the more you'll see all these little thematic touches. Just as you, yeah, it's just the riddle in the dark. Famous. Bilbo and Gollum basically riddling to the death. If Bilbo loses, Gollum eats Bilbo. If Bilbo wins, Gollum leads Bilbo out. And these are the riddles here on the board. The riddles are actually laid out here in the order of the book. So, you know, you've got the mountain, the teeth, the wind. I think these two may be the wrong way around. I'll have to go back and check. But from my memory of The Hobbit, this is the order that the riddles actually were told in the text from left to right. Lovely little thematic touches. Somebody has actually done their homework here. And there's more here. The other thing I really liked, when you get to the end of chapter 8, and he lived happily ever after to the end of his days. That's actually from Lord of the Rings, when Bilbo and Gandalf are talking after the party before Bilbo departs. So yeah, just little touches. Somebody has done their homework here, and it's great. So how does the game actually work, especially from a solo point of view? Well, what actually happens here is you will basically open the book up to a chapter, your little scenario book here, and you will open the rule book and find the particular chapter here. Now, the rules are pretty simple. All you do in the solo game is you roll dice and you pair them off into groups of 2, 1, and 3. Basically, how they fall on the table defines the groups. And you will choose one die result from each of the 3 groups, and you will apply that die result to your board. And that typically means typical roll and write stuff. You're filling in paths, you're crossing things off, and you are basically guided by the scenario rules. So mechanically, the game is very simple. Roll some dice, mark some stuff off, but all the complexity actually comes into these scenarios, and these scenarios actually get quite busy. So yeah, the actual rules for the game were like 3 or 4 pages, but there's actually another 2 pages of rules for each scenario, and they get quite varied in how they tackle your victory conditions and what you need to do. Some get quite complex, some are quite different. So instead of crossing off little paths over your board here, this one you're actually crossing off shapes. So you're kind of filling it in a little bit like a Knizia game like Fides or Bits or something like that. So you're not actually drawing paths, you're drawing shapes and trying to avoid the trouble spots. This one was quite complex in that this is the wargs attacking the dwarves. The dwarves are stuck in the tree and the eagles rescue them. So here you're trying to collect pine cones. Now this initially, basically, yeah, Tolkien served in World War I. He served on the Somme, and I think there's a theory that the burning pine cones are like hand grenades. He was quite traumatized by his experiences in World War One, which is totally understandable. Yeah, so this game is the wargs attacking. Yeah, you've got to basically link up paths to the dwarves so the eagles can come in and swoop you away. This is another shape filler where you're trying to rescue the dwarves by filling in shapes around them to cut them loose. This one was very, very intricate. It took me a few pages to, a few passes through the rules to actually understand this one. This one, you're trying to collect bread and work your way down the river out of the elven. You're coming down the river with the barrels out of the elven kingdom, and you have to basically get your way into the Lonely Mountain. So yeah, this one is actually quite complex. And the last one, which I think was my favorite, was just a blast to play. This one is basically Bard the Bowman running around Lake Town while Smaug is trying to destroy it. You're basically trying to knock all these little sort of spots off Smaug to try and, you know, defeat him. And you're trying to basically rescue the members of Lake Town, the citizens. And this was a blast. This was by far my favorite one to play. Now, I'm going to talk about the solo experience because I haven't played multiplayer. And yeah, we'll dig into that. Right, to play this game solo, you get 2 pages of solo rules down the end of the rulebook. And as I explained earlier, you basically roll them onto the table and you divide them into groups based on how they fall. And you select 1 die out of each group and apply them. To sort of simulate the multiplayer aspect, normally you're racing for these glory points, these little yellow sort of values around the board. But at the start of every odd round from turn 3 onwards, you basically cross some of these glories off. So if you haven't got them by the time you cross them off, you don't get them. If you can reach the end of the game condition, each scenario has an end game condition, you'll get an extra 20 points, or 50 if you're playing on hard or hard mode. Now, problem number 1 is the solo game is limited by rounds, and the rounds talk about a round tracker. I thought I was missing a component when I was reading the solo rules, basically talking about the round tracker. I couldn't find a round tracker. Then I realized the round tracker is here, which immediately, you know, is a showstopper because you're meant to use a little Bilbo piece. I don't know where my little Bilbo piece has gone. There he is. You're meant to use this little Bilbo piece here with the rulebook open here to track the rounds, and when you get to these turns here, you see you have to cross off some glory. But these scenarios are so intricate that you have to basically go back and check, you know, check some rules. And of course, you can't basically leave Bilbo hanging down there with, you know, you're going to lose your turn order. You don't know where you are in the turn. So that's a little bit of an oversight, and it kind of makes me feel like the solo game was an afterthought. It would have been nice if we had a separate, you know, component basically printed on the punch sheets to basically track the rounds. What I ended up doing, I was using pine cones to you know, I'll put 8 pine cones down and just throw one away when the turn came around, but that you kind of lose track. I found I was losing track. So what I ended up doing was, and this is a little cheat just in case you end up playing this, is every part has like this little footprint here. So part 1, the foot is here. And if you go down the thing, part 4, the foot is here, part 3. What I did was I just basically drew the turn order track in here for the solo game. Most solo scenarios are only 8 turns. And where did poor Bilbo go? And I just put Bilbo basically there, and I just moved it along. That is a little hack for the solo game. Now, the other issue I have with the solo game is, now while they're fun, they're very, very quick. You get these elaborate boards with all these rules and all this stuff to explore, and you're given 8 turns, which is basically 24 dice to try and work your way through these sort of quite intricate scenarios. And I just found that wasn't enough. I was getting quite annoyed because it just felt too quick. So I would almost, yeah, look, I can see you've got to put a time constraint on a solo game, but I would almost extend the solo scenarios by 2 turns, but then you mess your score up based on anybody else who's playing the solo game. But I just found these way too quick. When you get down to, I think, part 8. Part 8 was 13 turns. And that was almost too much, because you've got to race around with Bard here and save all the citizens of Lake Town. At 13 turns, I did it easy, and I almost defeated Smaug. So that almost felt too long, but this was the best scenario because it was just fun. And all the other scenarios just felt too quick, because you just don't have the time in a solo game to kind of push your way through. Like this scenario, for example, you're coming out of the barrels. You've actually got to link these two spaces up over land and over water in order to cross this thing to get into the mountain, to unlock the gems and chat with Smaug. The solo game, I barely got in because it takes so much time to kind of link these two spaces up, and I never got anywhere near these gems under the Lonely Mountain. So yeah, the solo game, it's fine, it works. It almost feels like a bit of an afterthought, but yeah, it would just be nicer if it was just a little bit longer. But I understand the time pressures that you're constrained by to kind of just do as much as you can in as little time as possible just to get a score. But yeah, I just found the solo game slightly frustrating. But what it did make me want to do is try the multiplayer game. So anyway, just thematically beautiful. It took me about 20 minutes to buy into the presentation. Just all the little touches through here, like little Easter eggs and things. Somebody has done a great job. I really like this game. I had fun playing it 20 times solo, but I really want to play it with some real people. A multiplayer game is the way to go with this one, I think. So sorry that was rushed. It was just a quick look at the solo game for the Hobbit. There and back again. Well done. Beautiful game. Reiner Knizia, Tolkien. I'm in heaven. See you next time.